Welcome to Buddhist Bookshelf, your gateway to profound Buddhist teachings. Today, we're excited to present The Awakening of Wisdom and Compassion, an enlightening 6-part audiobook series by the esteemed Venerable Master Chin Kung. This series takes you on a profound journey into the timeless wisdom and compassion central to Buddhism. Venerable Master Chin Kung's teachings offer invaluable insights on how wisdom and compassion can deeply enrich our lives and lead us to inner peace. Join us in this exploration of spiritual growth and enlightenment as we dive into the heart of these teachings. If you haven't already, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel. By doing so, you become a part of our growing community committed to spreading the wonderful teachings of the Buddha. Your subscription allows us to continue sharing these invaluable lessons with the world. If you find this audiobook series inspiring, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with your friends and family. Together, we can help make the teachings of the Buddha accessible to every human being, fostering understanding, peace, and compassion across the globe. Thank you for joining us on this enlightening journey, and let's work together to illuminate the path of wisdom and compassion for all. This episode includes Chapter 6, The 5 Guidelines. Buddha Shakyamuni used innumerable methods to correspond with the level of attainment of his listeners. However, regardless of the particular method, he never deviated from the great perfection. In other words, all his teachings arose from the self-nature. Consequently, all methods are equal. It is like the harmony between the leading role and the supporting roles in the Flower Adornment Sutra. If Buddha Shakyamuni is the leading role, all the other Buddhas are the supporting roles. When Buddha Amitabha is the leading role, Buddha Vairocana will be the supporting role. Any Buddha can take the leading role. Harmonious cooperation between the roles is also found among the Bodhisattvas. If we regard Great Compassion Bodhisattva as the leading role in our learning of Buddhism, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are in the supporting roles. If Earth Treasure Bodhisattva takes the leading role, Great Compassion Bodhisattva or others take the supporting role. This principle applies to sutras as well. When we choose the Infinite Life Sutra as our primary sutra, then all the others become secondary. If we take the Diamond Sutra as the primary, then the Infinite Life Sutra and the Flower Adornment Sutra become the secondary. All bodhisattvas and all sutras are equal in nature. Whichever primary method is chosen, it is praised as number one. However, saying that a certain method is number one does not mean that the others are less important or effective. If we forget this, then we commit a serious offense. What offense? Praising oneself and belittling others. Consider the origin of the Visualization Sutra. When Queen Videhi suffered from overwhelming family misfortune, she bitterly said to Buddha Shakyamuni, "Life is filled with suffering. Is there not a place without suffering? I wish to live in such a world." Through his extraordinary abilities, Buddha Shakyamuni displayed for the queen all the worlds of all the Buddhas in the universe. She vowed to be born into Buddha Amitabha's Western Pure Land, the world of ultimate bliss, and requested that Buddha Shakyamuni teach her how to accomplish this. He taught her to practice the 3 conditions, explaining that they were the fundamental causes of attaining Buddhahood for the Buddhas of the past, present and future. Therefore, they are a crucial part and foundation of our practice. The 3 conditions are the basis of Buddhism and crucial in our attainment of Buddhahood. The 3 conditions. To be a virtuous person, it is necessary to first follow the 3 conditions. In sutras, we often see the phrase good men and good women. What are the requirements for being good? Meeting each of the 11 principles contained in the 3 conditions. Thus, we will see that the requirements are stringent. Good men and good women in the heaven and human realms need only meet the first condition. Theravada practitioners are required to fulfill the first and second conditions. But for Mahayana practitioners, good men and good women must meet all 3. As we see in Mahayana sutras such as the Earth Treasure Sutra and the Infinite Life Sutra, it is to live our lives in accordance with the 11 principles. Failure to satisfy any one of the principles would prohibit a person from being considered good. Regardless of what the Buddha taught, the methods of learning and cultivation or the true reality of life in the universe, all accord with the great perfection. The 11 principles of the 3 conditions are likewise perfect in every word. The first condition: the good fortune required to be a human or heavenly being. The first condition includes being filial to our parents, being respectful to our teachers and elders, being compassionate and not killing any living beings, and following the 10 good conducts. Consider the first and second principles of being filial to our parents and respectful to our teachers and elders. The Chinese character for filial piety, xiao, is comprised of 2 parts. The top part old means the previous generations, and the bottom part children means the future generations. This demonstrates that the previous generations and the future generations are actually one entity. They are one rather than 2. In our modern world, the existence of the generation gap has resulted in parents and children being 2 instead of 1. This gap contradicts the principle of filial piety, which has no generation gap. The past had its own past, the future will have its own future. The past had no beginning, and the future will have no end. They are one. Filial piety reaches beyond time and extends throughout the universe. In other words, it encompasses the entire universe. Who can practice the principle of filial piety to perfection? Only a Buddha can do so. Without having attained Buddhahood, we cannot achieve the great perfection in practicing filial piety. Filial piety has profound meanings in Buddhism. It means to take care of parents physically, mentally, and to fulfill their wishes. To further extend and enhance our respect and care for our parents, we have compassion for all beings in this world. As stated in a precept sutra, all men are my father, all women are my mother. This is the broadening of our mind of filial piety, so that it encompasses all beings in the universe, in the past, present, and future. Mahayana teachings are based on the principle of filial piety, for without it, there would be no principle of respecting teachers. It is illogical that we would not be filial to our parents, yet respectful to our teachers. We could have ulterior intentions, for example, flattering the teacher to obtain a better grade. Filial piety and respect go together. At the same time that we are filial to our parents, we also elevate that filial piety to being respectful to our teachers. Only when we realize this truth will we truly appreciate the value of the principle of filial piety. The Earth Treasure Sutra is the Buddha's teaching of filial piety, for only when we treat our parents with such respect can we uncover the infinite treasures within our own self-nature. Being filial toward our parents is a virtue of our self-nature. Only virtuous acts can uncover our self-nature. It is the first and most fundamental principle of the 3 conditions. The Chinese respect ancestors even though they are distant from them by hundreds, even thousands of years. They memorialize them on important festivals. Why? Their ancestors and they are all one entity. There is no gap between them. Sincerely memorializing our ancestors corresponds with our self-nature. If we remember and respect our ancestors, we will certainly be filial to our parents. When we are filial toward our parents, it naturally follows that we will respect our teachers. When we disappoint our parents by not respecting teachers, not following their instructions, and not studying hard, we violate the principle of filial piety. Also, siblings would do well to live in harmony. Not getting along with brothers and sisters will cause parents to worry, thus also violating the principle of filial piety. By getting along with others at work, meeting responsibilities, and abiding by laws, we will not cause our parents to worry, thus we accord with the principle of filial piety. These are a true perfection of virtue. Buddha Shakyamuni taught us to begin our learning from here. He is our original teacher from 3,000 years ago. If we respect a teacher from this far in the past, how would we not respect our current teachers? When we pay respect to an image of the Buddha, we are not worshipping him. We respect the image as a representation of our original teacher, and therefore we pay our debt of gratitude to him. This is why the followers of the Buddha respect the Buddha's images, as well as memorial plaques of ancestors. This practice has a far-reaching and widespread educational significance, for at the sight of them, we remember our obligation of caring for and respecting our parents, teachers, and elders. The Earth Treasure Sutra tells us about compassion after explaining the great perfection. Compassion is the third principle of the first condition. Compassion is also a virtue of self-nature and crucial to our practice. When the virtue of filial piety and respect for parents and teachers is expanded, it becomes compassion. Compassion includes not killing any living being. This statement has profound meanings. Without a thorough comprehension of the Earth Treasure Sutra, we cannot understand the true meaning behind not killing any living being. Of all bad karmas, that resulting from killing is most serious. Why? All living beings have the natural instinct of fearing and evading death. Although killing is the direct retribution of the victim who killed the present killer in a previous lifetime, the current victim does not know this. He or she would not think, "I killed this person, so now this person is killing me." If only the victim could understand this, there would be no anger at the retribution. Instead, the present victim will think, "You are killing me now. I will kill you next." This vengeance will be repeated in the endless cycle of birth and death, and the mutual hatred will grow stronger and stronger. This is the most terrible of all the bad offenses, and is why we need so urgently to practice compassion for all beings. There are infinite ways to practice compassion, but in the three conditions, the Buddha particularly stressed not killing any living being. In other words, killing is an ultimate act of being unfilial towards our parents and disrespectful towards our teachers and elders. The Buddha taught the basic 5 precepts, and the first of these is also the first of the 10 good conducts: do not kill. Continuing to kill is to completely disregard his teachings and is an ultimate act of disrespect. This disrespect is tantamount to being unfilial to our parents. Consequently, if we ignore these instructions and kill, we are neither compassionate nor filial. The fourth principle is following the 10 good conducts, which are criteria for good behavior and are to be found in many cultures and religions throughout the world. Buddha Shakyamuni told us that if we practice these good conducts, we would not fall into the 3 bad realms. Instead, we would likely to be born into the heaven realms if we practice these good conducts diligently. If we achieve the deep concentration along with the 4 immeasurable minds of loving kindness, giving happiness to others, compassion, taking away bitterness of others, joy, liberating others from suffering and feeling happy for them, and letting go of the first 3 minds, we will rise to an even higher level of the heavens, the heaven of form and the heaven of formless. The Buddha groups the 10 good conducts into 3 major categories: physical, verbal and mental. Physically, we are prohibited from killing, stealing and committing sexual misconduct. Regardless of their good deeds or their ability in deep concentration, those who have sexual desires can only rise as far as the heaven of desire. This heaven has 6 levels. The higher we rise, the lighter these desires. A person who sincerely cultivates and has thus attained even the lowest level of deep concentration would be able to suppress sexual desires. At this level, the 5 desires of wealth, lust, fame, food or drink and sleep would not arise. Although the desires are not completely eradicated, they can be suppressed by deep concentration. Only the one who can resist temptations of desire can attain this state and thus be born into the heavens above the first level meditation heaven. Understanding this explains why attainment throughout this process is so difficult. When we are attempting to practice, we can first ask ourselves, can I resist the 5 desires of wealth, lust, fame, food or drink and sleep? If we yield to temptation, we will not be able to rise to this level of heaven. The second good conduct is to not steal. For instance, some people like to evade paying their income taxes. This is equivalent to stealing money from the country, and the retribution from this is much serious than that from stealing private property. When we steal one person's property, we only have a debt to that one person. But if we steal property of the country, we will have a hopelessly insurmountable debt, because then we will have stolen from and thus owe every taxpayer. For example, the United States has a population of well over 200 million. 200 million creditors. Just imagine the consequences. Therefore, a sincere practitioner must be a law-abiding person devoted to meeting public responsibilities. One who does not violate the good deeds of no killing, stealing or sexual misconduct, conducts themselves properly. There are 4 verbal good conducts: no lying, abusive language, bearing tales and seductive words. First, do not lie. To lie is to cheat deliberately, it is dishonesty. Second, do not make rude or abusive remarks. Those who have this bad habit speak with no sense of propriety, their words can be irritating or very harmful. Third, do not talk about others behind their back, for this sows discord among people. A person says to Sam, "Tom has said something bad about you." And then this person says to Tom, "Sam has said something bad about you." Whether this person does so deliberately or unintentionally, he is bearing tales and gossiping. In our society, many people do this unintentionally. At times, so many people participate in this that the subject becomes distorted beyond recognition. A well-meant message or remark may become just the opposite after everyone who passes it adds or omits something. This can cause serious consequences ranging from discord among individuals to war among nations. Fourth, do not use seductive words. These can sound very sweet and enticing, but often conceal bad intentions. Just look at many of today's movies, singers and performers. They sound beautiful and look good, but what are they teaching people to do? To lie, steal, or kill. Fifth, do not commit sexual misconduct. Finally, there are 3 mental good conducts: no greed, anger or ignorance. Greed includes being stingy, reluctant to give of our belongings, our knowledge to help others. This can become the greatest obstacle to overcome in our practice. The Buddha taught giving as a way to eradicate our greed. Some practitioners are able to resist any worldly temptations, however, they cannot resist the desire to learn many methods of practice. So, they have not truly rid themselves of their greed. The Buddha has taught us to let go of all desires and greed. He did not ask us to turn to new objects for our greed. In the past, we sought worldly joys, now we seek and attach to Buddhist knowledge. The mind of greed is still there. Therefore, whether for worldly life or for Buddhist knowledge, we would do well not to be greedy. Greed is the source of all misdeeds and wrongdoing. Greed leads to resentment and anger. Why? We become resentful and angry when our greed is not satisfied, and this brings about immense worries and afflictions. Greed is the cause of the karma that results in us being born into the hungry ghost realm. By failing to rid ourselves of the resentment and anger caused by greed, we can be born into the hell realm. Ignorance, having no wisdom, results in us being born into the animal realm. In both worldly teachings and in Buddhism, there is truth and falsehood, justice and injustice, right and wrong, good and bad. An ignorant person cannot tell the difference between them. Intentional or unintentional, he or she often confuses false and truth, bad and good. The 3 poisons are the biggest obstacles to our attainment of enlightenment. Buddhism, especially the Zen school, advocates starting our practice from the root, the mind. To start from this root, we need to sever our greed, anger and ignorance. These 3 physical, 4 verbal and 3 mental deeds comprise the 10 good conducts. If we are filial to and care for our parents, respect and serve our teachers and elders, and are compassionate without any killing and practice the 10 good conducts, we will be regarded as good people by society. However, we still cannot be called good men and good women in the Buddhist sense, because the criterion for this are higher than just these 4 principles. Thus, it is not easy for us to achieve even the basic standards. The second condition: the good fortune required to be a Theravada sage. The second of the 3 conditions is taking the 3 refuges, abiding by precepts, laws and customs, and behaving in a proper and dignified manner. Mahayana Buddhism is based on the foundation of Theravada Buddhism, which was introduced into China during the Sui and Tang dynasties 1300 years ago, but soon gave way to Mahayana Buddhism. Why did the Theravada teachings decline in China? In ancient times, people who learned Buddhism had already been nurtured in the Taoist and Confucian teachings, which were enough to replace the Theravada teachings. Since the Taoist and Confucian teachings were also similar to those of the Mahayana teachings, it was natural for the Chinese to accept them. Thus, the Theravada teachings were not practiced as Taoism, and Confucianism served as the foundation of Mahayana teachings. Consequently, Theravada teachings never really developed in China. Today, people learn and practice Mahayana, but ignore Theravada Buddhism, Taoism and Confucianism. This is similar to ignoring the foundation and first floor when building a house. Such an attempt would not work because the house would be a cabin in the sky. This is why we see so few Buddhist successors today. Theravada Buddhism is established on the human heavenly basis, which includes being filial to our parents, respectful to our teachers and elders, compassionate to others, and diligent in practicing the 10 good conducts. With this base, we can meet the criteria to begin learning and practicing Buddhism. To be a Buddhist practitioner, after we have acquired basic understanding, we pay respect to the teacher and take the 3 refuges of the Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha, the 5th principle of the 3 conditions. We pay respect to Buddha Shakyamuni and express the wish to follow his teachings for the rest of our lives. From this point on, we will have the standards for changing our thoughts, speech and behavior. Taking refuge in the Triple Jewels is to take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha. In ancient times, everyone understood the meaning of the Triple Jewels. Today, however, many people do not. When they hear the word Buddha, they think of an image. When they hear the word Dharma, they think of a sutra. When they hear the word Sangha, they think of monks and nuns. The 6th patriarch of Zen, Master Huineng, foresaw the possibility that people in the future would misinterpret the meaning of the Triple Jewels. Therefore, whenever he taught, he would not use the words Buddha, Dharma or Sangha. Instead, he used awakening, proper understanding and purity. These terms are more easily understood and less subject to misunderstanding. They are called the Triple Jewels of Self-Nature, which are the true principles for us to follow. If we become misled here and follow an individual master, we will remain misled from now on. If that happens, how can we achieve any real attainment? When we take refuge in the Triple Jewels, we first return to and rely upon the Buddha. For uncountable eons, we have been wandering helplessly and miserably in the 6 realms. Now we have met a good teacher who shows us that we need to return from our confusion, delusion and erroneous thinking, and to rely upon the awakening of our self-nature. Our self-nature was originally awakened. So, the Buddha that we rely upon is not to be found outside of ourselves, but is innate to our self-nature. The Pure Land school teaches Buddha Amitabha, and the Pure Land are already within our self-nature. Buddha Amitabha, Buddha Shakyamuni and all Buddhas manifest from our self-nature. Therefore, what we rely upon is the Buddha or awakening of our self-nature. From now on we should be awakened and never again be deluded or filled with attachments, for if we do so then we have not turned back. Next we return to and rely upon the Dharma, of which our thoughts and viewpoints of life and the universe completely accord with true reality. This treasure is only found within our self-nature. Buddha Shakyamuni taught us to return from erroneous thoughts and viewpoints, and to rely only upon those that are proper. This is to return and rely upon the Dharma. The Buddha did not tell us to blindly follow him, but rather to find the truth for ourselves. Next we return to and rely upon the Sangha, which represents purity of the 6 senses of sight, sound, smell, taste, touch and thought. Most of us will find that our 6 senses become polluted when they encounter external surroundings. When these are pleasing, we develop a heart of greed, which is pollution. When these are displeasing, we develop a heart of resentment and anger, which is pollution as well. We need to remember that the 5 desires of wealth, lust, fame, food or drink and sleep and the 7 human emotions of joy, anger, sorrow, fear, love, hate and desire are impurities of the heart. The Buddha told us that originally our self-nature was pure without impurities. We need to eradicate all impurities and rely upon our pure heart. This is to return and rely upon the Sangha. In summary, taking refuge in the Buddha means being awakened and not deluded. Taking refuge in the Dharma means being proper and not deviated. Taking refuge in the Sangha means being pure and not polluted. These are the triple jewels of self-nature that the Buddha taught us for our practice. Awakening, proper viewpoints and purity. From now on, we need to forget our past and return to and rely upon these triple jewels and use them to correct our thoughts, speech and behavior. When we attain one of the three refuges, we achieve the other two as well. Think about it. Will an awakened person have erroneous viewpoints? Will this person have an impure heart? Can a person with an impure heart and erroneous viewpoints attain awakening? The Buddha has shown us 3 guidelines to uncover our original self-nature and to attain Buddhahood. This is similar to a way place with 3 entrances. We only need to step through one, and we are in. Zen Buddhism uses the sudden enlightenment method to uncover our self-nature. However, only cultivators with superior capability and purity of mind can achieve attainment in this way. For example, Master Huineng only taught students with superior capabilities. Other schools such as the Tiantai, Flower Adornment and 3 Sastras, Discourse, schools, use the proper thoughts and viewpoints method by correcting thoughts and behavior following the guidelines in the sutras. However, this requires endurance and much practice because achievement takes a long time, and we have to study many sutras. The Pure Land and esoteric schools, however, emphasize practice through purity of mind through cultivation. It is logical that these 2 schools are popular today in the Dharma ending age. However, the Pure Land school does not require unusually superior abilities or a long period of time for practice. As it stresses the Buddha name chanting method to attain purity of mind, it is much easier to practice and to reach attainment in than the esoteric school. Again, although the doors to the way place are different, each of them will give us entry. Therefore, all methods are equal, and that the 3 methods of enlightenment, proper thoughts and viewpoints, and purity are in essence the same. Thus, we need to acquire a clear understanding of the triple jewels of self-nature, and to know which method to choose as the basis for our practice. Only in this way will we find genuine refuge. Otherwise, we will remain ignorant of where to take refuge and upon what to rely. Although we may now have more understanding of the triple jewels, we may still be confused as to how to practice them in our daily lives. Each school has its own representations of the triple jewels. For example, in the Flower Adornment School they are Vairocana Buddha, the Flower Adornment Sutra, Great Wisdom Bodhisattva and Universal Worthy Bodhisattva, and the 41 Great Bodhisattvas, respectively. They are our role models to emulate. The triple jewels of the Tiantai school are Buddha Shakyamuni, the Lotus Sutra and the Bodhisattvas named in the sutra, respectively. In the Pure Land school they are Buddha Amitabha, the Infinite Life Sutra, the other 4 sutras and 1 sastra or commentary, Great Compassion Bodhisattva, Great Strength Bodhisattva, Great Wisdom Bodhisattva and Universal Worthy Bodhisattva, respectively. We learn compassion from Great Compassion Bodhisattva and single-minded concentration from Great Strength Bodhisattva. The chapter on the perfect and complete realization of Great Strength Bodhisattva in the Surangama Sutra tells us how Great Strength Bodhisattva concentrated on the Buddha name chanting method from the time he took refuge until the time he attained enlightenment. He taught us that the proper way to chant is the complementary practice of concentrating the 6 sense organs and continuous pure mindfulness of Buddha Amitabha. Pure mindfulness is to chant without doubt, intermingling with other thoughts and methods, to chant with a pure mind. Continuous means uninterrupted with one sentence after another. This is the key to success in the practice of Buddha name chanting, which was taught by Great Strength Bodhisattva. Mr. Xio wrote in his book entitled Essentials for Practice of the Pure Land School that Great Strength Bodhisattva was the founding patriarch of the Dharma realm. Initially, his comment greatly surprised me because I had never heard this before. Later, I understood what he meant and greatly admired him for his perception. Throughout the universe, Great Strength was the first bodhisattva to concentrate solely on the Buddha name chanting method. When Buddha Shakyamuni manifested in our Saha world, the first sutra he taught was the Flower Adornment Sutra. In this assembly, the 10 great vows of Universal Worthy Bodhisattva concluded the sutra and guide us to the Western Pure Land. Thus, Universal Worthy Bodhisattva is the founding patriarch of our Saha world. Then, after the Infinite Life Sutra was introduced into China, Master Wei Yuan of the Eastern Jin dynasty, which was 1600 years ago, built a cultivation hall and gathered together 123 fellow practitioners. They exclusively studied the Infinite Life Sutra and practiced the Buddha name chanting method. Therefore, the three founding patriarchs of the Pure Land School are Great Strength Bodhisattva of the Dharma realms, Universal Worthy Bodhisattva of the Saha world, and Master Wei Yuan of China. Years ago, my late teacher, Mr. Bing An Li, of Taizhong in Taiwan, suggested that I should introduce the Pure Land Buddhism to the West. I established a way place in Dallas, Texas, and called it the Flower Adornment Society, the same name I used in Taiwan. When I brought statues of Buddha Amitabha, Great Compassion Bodhisattva and Great Strength Bodhisattva from China, they were too small for the 21-foot hall. I thought that it would be better to have larger paintings with Western features to symbolize the introduction of the Pure Land Buddhism to the West. Just one day before my departure for the United States, I received some paintings with the request that they be taken to Dallas. I still do not know who the donor was. The paintings were of Buddha Amitabha, Great Compassion Bodhisattva and Great Strength Bodhisattva. What a surprise! Buddha Amitabha had Indian features, Great Compassion Bodhisattva had Chinese features, and Great Strength Bodhisattva had Western features. The donor had the same idea that I had. The Western features of the founding patriarch of the Dharma realm symbolized the arrival of the Pure Land Buddhism in the United States. Thus, the Pure Land Society was set up in the West. Mr. Lian Zhuxia had been the first to suggest that a Pure Land Society be formed. But it was not to be in China, but rather in Dallas. The triple jewels are also represented by images of Buddhas, sutras and monks and nuns. They are to remind us of the need to return and rely on the triple jewels of our self-nature. When we see images of the Buddha, they remind us to be awakened and not deluded when interacting with people and handling matters and objects. Without this daily reminder, we will remain confused and wrapped up in worldly affairs. The sutras are to be recited daily, but not for the benefit of the Buddha. We recite them as another reminder of how to cultivate our mind and how to properly interact with people and handling matters and objects. For example, our daily conduct is an expression of the Infinite Life Sutra when we emulate the qualities found within it. The image of a monk or nun, whether or not he or she has abided by the precepts, reminds us to keep our six senses from becoming polluted. We need to understand that we do not take refuge in individuals who pass on to us the meaning and the cultivation guidelines of the triple jewels of awakening, proper thoughts and viewpoints, and purity. Although there is an uncountable number of methods, their objectives are the same. As is often said, all roads lead to Rome, and all methods are the same. Pure Land practitioners should never criticize or slander Zen, esoteric or any other schools. Why? Because their objectives are the same as ours, they simply follow different methods. This is similar to our taking a bus while others chose to walk. We cannot say that they are wrong when all roads lead to the same destination. They have the freedom to choose their way. When I was in the United States, a student asked me, "I am confused by so many methods. Which one do you think I should choose?" At the time, there happened to be a ball on the ground. I pointed to the ball and said, "Look at this ball. The surface has points countless as the number of methods. The teachings require you to find the center of the ball. You can reach the center from any point on the surface, as long as you follow a straight line. You need not find a second or a third point. As an old saying goes, follow the road and you will get home. There is no need to circle around." He then understood that Buddhism pursues the true mind. Once we attain enlightenment, we attain everything. Therefore, no matter which method we choose, the key to success is concentration on one method. So long as we adhere to our chosen method, we will achieve deep concentration, attain wisdom and uncover the self-nature of great perfection. From all of this, we can see how important the triple jewels are to us. Monks and nuns are the treasure of the Sangha. We need to respect all of them. We can learn from the good ones, as well as from those who do not follow the rules and guidelines. We emulate the former and use the latter to serve as negative examples. If we fail to understand that taking refuge in the Triple Jewels does not mean following a certain person, then there will be the most serious of consequences, as we will fall into Avisi hell. Why? Throughout the universe, there is only one Sangha, an integral body. The Sangha in our present world is just a part of this whole. If we take refuge in and follow only one individual monk or nun, and regard that person as our only teacher and refuse to respect others, by doing so, we will be splitting and sowing discord among the group, the fifth of the 5 deadly offenses of murdering our father, murdering our mother, causing a Buddha to bleed, killing a bodhisattva and a rat, and disrupting the unity of the Sangha. Therefore, it would be even worse to choose only a certain monk or nun for refuge than not to take refuge at all. Furthermore, we only need to take refuge once. It does not accomplish anything to take refuge from one person this time and then from another the next time. We may think that we can get much more protection if we follow many monks and nuns. However, as the saying goes, a clay idol crossing a river cannot even protect himself. Nobody can protect us. Only when we take refuge in the triple jewels of our self-nature can we protect ourselves. Some of those here today may have gone through a taking refuge ceremony. If now, those who have done so have a clearer understanding, then they can properly take refuge in the triple jewels by following the principles of awakening, proper thoughts and viewpoints, and purity. The 6th principle of the 3 conditions is abiding by the precepts, laws and customs. Of all the precepts, the most important are the basic 5 precepts. My late teacher, living Buddha Master Zhang Jia once said, the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts are so essential that all Buddhist cultivators need to abide by them every moment. Then he explained further, it is like a train ticket for you to get from northern Taiwan to southern Taiwan. From the moment you board the train until you reach your destination, you must hold on to that ticket. You must not lose it, because you have to show it when you depart. Taking refuge in the triple jewels and the first 5 precepts are as important to you as that train ticket. He further explained that if we part from the triple jewels and the precepts, we will lose the teachings and will no longer be a student of the Buddha. The 5 precepts are no killing, stealing, committing sexual misconduct, lying and taking intoxicants. The first 4 offenses are physical transgressions of the self-nature. Whether or not we have taken the precepts, it is wrong to commit these acts. But for one who has formally taken the 5 precepts, this will be considered as committing a double violation. However, drinking alcohol and taking intoxicants is different. A person who has not taken the precepts is not guilty when drinking. However, a person who has taken the precepts and then drinks will have broken this precept. The purpose of refraining from intoxicants is to prevent us from committing the first 4 transgressions while under the influence. Therefore, intoxicants in themselves are not wrong. This is an example of why we need to understand the purpose of the Buddha's precept setting, its function and benefit. When deciding whether to formally take the 5 precepts, the essence of all the precepts, we need to ask the Dharma Master to explain to us exactly what they mean. Only then we will know if and how to abide by them. Merely reading a book of the precepts does not necessarily ensure our commitment to keeping them. Some people have complained that there are too many precepts and that it is too easy to violate them. Thus, they abandon abiding by the precepts. This is why most people prefer reading or listening to talks about the sutras while avoiding those on precepts. We need to remember that precepts guide us in our behavior and are the proper conduct of all Buddhas. If there were no precepts, there would be no Buddhism. If there were no courtesies, there would be no Confucianism. Merely reciting the sutras without practicing their teachings will result in our not receiving any of their benefits. True learning lies in practice, and the precepts represent the practice of Buddhism. Thus, abiding by the 5 precepts becomes the standard for our daily lives and the guidelines for us to attain proper enlightenment. When the Buddha was in our world, he was joyful and open-minded, whether taking part in daily life or teaching. And it was this joy and energy that attracted people and helped them to accept Buddhism. It is not meant to bind us, but to benefit all beings by bringing them joy and happiness. The formation of the precepts was to show us the right path to attain a happy and fulfilling life. A good illustration is my late teacher, Mr. Bing An Lee, who lived a simple and frugal yet happy life. For decades, he only ate one meal a day. But, whenever he was invited out for dinner, he accepted. On several occasions, he invited me to accompany him. Since I had been practicing the precept of not eating dinner for years, I felt very uncomfortable when being invited. Mr. Lee simply said to me, "Come with me. Come with me." Later he spoke to me, "With this attachment, you will not be able to help people." Why? Because if you intend to help them, you must make them happy. Eating this dinner is not violating the precepts, but rather it is lifting them. They invited you with good intentions. If you reject their invitations, they will look upon you as being closed to reason. Then they will not only reject Buddhism, but will tell others that we practitioners are arrogant and look down upon others. They may also urge them to avoid Buddhists. So, you could ruin the opportunity of an untold number of people to learn of Buddhism. Furthermore, this will result in the creation of negative karma for you. Therefore, he was not violating the precepts, but was instead simply lifting them, for this meant making others happy, helping them to learn of Buddhism, as well as according with conditions. When we arrived at one dinner, the host apologized, "I am very sorry that I did not know that my Mr. Lee does not eat after noon." The host was obviously deeply moved that Mr. Lee had accepted his invitation. We can see from this that Buddhism is flexible. However, it would have been entirely different if Mr. Lee, or one who practices this precept, wanted to eat something in the evening. Many years ago when I was young, a friend told me a story about himself. It occurred during the Chinese War of Resistance against the Japanese invasion. After the fall of Nanjing, some Japanese soldiers chased the individual and two of his friends. The three fled to a temple and were saved by an old monk who shaved their heads, gave the monks clothing to put on, and told them to blend into the large assembly of monks. When the Japanese soldiers arrived at the temple, they were unable to find the three and soon left. Thus, they were saved. When the war was over, the friends returned to Nanjing wishing to repay their debt of gratitude. They invited the old monk to a lavish banquet. He arrived to find the table laden with chicken, duck, pork and fish. All of a sudden, they remembered that the monk was a vegetarian. They were extremely upset over their mistake and did not know what to do. But the monk acted like there was nothing unusual, and picking up his chopsticks invited everyone to sit down. The three friends were greatly moved. Did the old monk break the precepts? No. His behavior followed what is said in the sutras. Compassion and kindness are the basis of Buddhism, and skillful means are the method. He had used the first of the four beneficial methods, making others happy. The old monk was moved by their gesture and did not blame them for their honest mistake. He had used the same method that the bodhisattvas used to help people through the Dharma doors. If the monk had been angry, he could have easily ruined their interest in Buddhism. But he was wise enough to use the opportunity to help guide three people. Therefore, we again see that Mahayana Buddhism is highly flexible, as it accords with the existing circumstances. Let's look at strictly abiding by the precepts. The 5 precepts are the heart, the essence of all the precepts. Expanding further, we follow all the precepts as set forth by Buddha Shakyamuni, as well as the social norms, customs, rules and laws in every country. When in China we follow Chinese customs, rules and laws. When in the United States we do the same. In other words, precepts are rules we need to follow in our daily lives. Modern transportation has greatly increased opportunities for travel to different regions of the world. We need to follow the advice of when in Rome do as the Romans do. This is called strictly abiding by the precepts. Many of the precepts taught by Buddha Shakyamuni were appropriate for that time, but are no longer suitable today. Why? Our manner of living, dressing and eating is totally different from those of India several thousand years ago. For example, Of the 250 precepts for monks, 10 rules on the etiquette of dressing are totally unsuitable for today, as ancient Indians dress differently than we do. Eating is another area that has changed considerably. Therefore, when we recite and study the texts on the precepts today, we are learning the spirit and not just the letter of the law. Likewise, when we practice adhering to the precepts, the most important point is to follow their fundamental spirit: do nothing that is bad. Do everything that is good. To do nothing that is bad is directed toward us. This is a Theravada precept to develop self-discipline and is to be followed conscientiously. It is what the Chinese call attending to one's own moral well-being even while alone. When we practice self-discipline, we need to remain true to the precepts, even when we are alone. To do all that is good is for the benefit of all beings. This is a bodhisattva precept in teaching us how to interact with others. Precepts are the criteria for distinguishing between good and bad. Because of the differences in the political system, philosophy and culture, the precepts needed to be modified when Buddhism was introduced into China. The rules established by Master Bai Zhang in the Tang dynasty, approximately 1,000 years ago, were the modified versions adapted for China at that time. However, the essence remained unchanged. This is similar to a state revising the law from time to time. As new situations arise, it becomes necessary to amend some articles, but the principle remains the same. In China, way places in every province and regions have their own version of the precepts. They need to mesh with the local conditions for people to follow them. This is simply a modification. If this is not done, then Buddhism will not survive. Only through this updating and modification will it be vital and constantly renewed, allowing it to be accepted and practiced around the world. The Buddha told us that if we can abide by the precepts and laws, we will have a tranquil body and mind, which will allow us to be free from worries and fear. Deep concentration arises from tranquility. Therefore, the precepts are essential to self-cultivation. If we break the law or the precepts, then our conscience will be plagued by guilt, even if no punishment is meted out. Moreover, even if we avoid worldly retributions, there is no way to avoid our karmic retribution. When our body and mind are disturbed, we cannot concentrate on our practice. To practice successfully, we need to be tranquil. It is said, precepts or self-discipline lead to deep concentration, from which wisdom arises. The seventh principle of behaving in a dignified and proper manner means we act appropriately for the circumstances we are in. We act from the heart of sincerity and respect for all beings, animate and inanimate, to accord with social etiquette. In summary, the second condition, including abiding by the precepts, is a Theravada act of merit and the basis for practice. The third condition, the good fortune required to be a bodhisattva. The third condition is built upon the basis of the second condition and includes generating the bodhi mind, deeply believing in the law of cause and effect, reciting and upholding the Mahayana Sutras and encouraging others on the path to enlightenment. The eighth principle is generating the bodhi mind. Chinese Buddhists primarily practice Mahayana Buddhism and wish to develop the bodhi mind, the awakened mind that is genuinely free from delusions. It is the awakened mind that realizes this world is full of misery and suffering. It is the compassionate and sincere mind, with every thought to attain realization for self and others. The Buddha told us that suffering exists throughout the 6 realms. Not only is human life one of suffering, but heavenly life as well. The sufferings of the human realm are so numerous that it would take far too long to describe them. Simply said, they are the 8 sufferings of birth, old age, sickness, death, hardships, the inability to have what we want, being separated from our loved ones, and being in the presence of those we dislike or even hate. A person who has been born into the form heaven is one who has accomplished deep concentration, as well as having severed the desires for wealth, lust, food or drink, fame and sleep. In this realm there is no suffering arising from external circumstances such as famine, storm, sickness, etc. But the beings here still suffer the inevitable consequences of time, deterioration or decay of the body, and finally the realization that they will not remain in this heaven permanently. With a physical body, we are mortal, we are born, become old, fall ill and die. With material form, there is impermanence, there is creation, existence, annihilation and void. A higher level is the formless heaven. Here, there is no sensuality, no form of male or female and no material form. The inhabitants have no sufferings arising from external circumstances or deterioration. However, here exists the suffering of the realization that nothing is eternal, nothing lasts forever, and that they are not in nirvana. For example, one is not eternal or able to remain in the formless heaven forever. Therefore, the only way to be genuinely free and happy is to transcend the three realms of the desire heaven, the form heaven and the formless heaven of pure spirit. How? By practicing according to the Buddha's teachings, for in this way we will truly generate the Bodhi mind and be enlightened. The Bodhi mind is fulfilled by the four great vows of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Sentient beings are innumerable. I vow to help them all. Afflictions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them all. Ways to practice are boundless. I vow to master them all. Enlightenment is unsurpassable. I vow to attain it. Mahayana Bodhisattvas cherish the heart to help all sentient beings. They not only know their own suffering and try to help themselves, but they also want to help their families, relatives, friends, all sentient beings. To equally wish to help all beings, this is the great Bodhi mind. The Infinite Life Sutra tells us that Bodhisattvas befriend and voluntarily help all living beings. Even if you do not seek help from them, they come to help. They voluntarily introduce Buddhism to all, and this is the pure cause of a bodhisattva. To help all beings, we need to first know how to help ourselves. To do this, we first free ourselves from worries and afflictions. It is important for us to follow the four great vows in the order listed. However, practitioners often try to practice the third vow of various methods before they practice the second vow, to be free from afflictions. Of the four great vows, they want to achieve the latter two of learning all methods and attaining enlightenment, but not the first two of helping all beings and abandoning afflictions. Their attempts are like trying to build the third and fourth floors of a house without building the first and second floors. Today, there are many practitioners, but few of them have succeeded. Why? They did not understand that first they needed to vow to help all sentient beings, for this great compassion is a critical driving force for us to genuinely study and practice. This is the heart of great kindness and compassion. Nor did they begin with the prerequisites such as eliminating delusions, greed, attachments and ignorance, which disturb and distress the mind. There are so many beings waiting for us to help them break away from their suffering. If we have no virtue, no knowledge, no ability, how can we help others? We do not attain Buddhahood for ourselves. This is the power of great kindness and compassion. Years ago, when I first started to study with my late teacher, Mr. Lee, he placed 3 restrictions on me. I was to follow only his lecturing or teaching. I was to read no books or reference materials without his permission, and as everything I had previously learned was not recognized, I was to restart as a beginner. The first blocked my ears, the second covered my eyes, and the third cleared my mind. The requirement seemed so imperious and unreasonable. What an arrogant and autocratic man he is, I thought. Yet I still accepted his restrictions and learned from him. I did not realize that these restrictions were precepts to help me to cut off my afflictions. My mind became purer with much less wandering thoughts after following his restrictions for just 6 months. His method helped me to practice the second great vow to end all afflictions. I became very grateful to him. Although he had only asked me to follow his restrictions for 5 years, I volunteered to extend my study with him for another 5. After 10 years as his student and abiding by his rules, I had established a solid foundation in Buddhism. Thus, he lifted the ban and encouraged me to broaden my field of study. In other words, I could listen to any teacher, even ones with deviated thoughts. I could read any books. Why? He told me that all knowledge would be beneficial rather than harmful to me, because I could distinguish between good and bad, right and wrong. I would not be misled by anyone. He likened it to a child who was innocent and young, needing to have the guidance and protection of parents before having the ability to judge and to make decisions. Good teachers are truly compassionate and kind. They are patient in teaching and dedicated to their duty. They try to protect their students from contamination of the mind. It is crucial for us to be close to a good teacher. However, being close does not mean being next to the teacher, but rather to listen to and follow their teachings. It is usually very hard to find one. We only meet the right teacher after many lifetimes. Some people have said to me that I was most fortunate to have met good teachers, but where could they find one? This teacher is to be encountered rather than sought, and the chances for this are rare indeed. It is a matter of affinity and the right conditions maturing. We need to nurture the good root and opportunities. If we are unable to meet these rare teachers, then we can learn from ancient sages. Mr. Lee modestly told me that he only had the ability to teach me for 5 years. He encouraged me to continue my studies by learning from his teacher, the late Venerable Master Chin Kung. He advised me not to emulate people who were famous Buddhist scholars, who were knowledgeable in Buddhist studies, but who had not attained achievement in cultivation. Master Chin Kung was currently the best teacher. When we cannot find the true knowledge of goodness in current teachers, we can turn to ancient sages. There have been many people who have succeeded with this method. The first person in China to take an ancient master as his teacher was Mencius. He learned from Confucius, who had left his writings for later generations to learn from. Mencius only read Confucius's books and followed his teachings exclusively. He is acknowledged as a great sage, second only to Confucius. After Mencius, there were many others who succeeded in their academic pursuits using the same method. Another example is Master Yi of the Ming Dynasty, who was a patriarch of the Pure Land School. As for finding a good teacher today, do not follow me, I am not eligible to be a teacher. Mr. Lee once advised me to learn from Master Chin Kung. I recommend that you should select the best teacher, Buddha Amitabha and the Infinite Life Sutra for your practice. When we succeed in our practice, we will attain Buddhahood. The most important thing in Buddhism is to concentrate on and delve deeply into one method. Then, we will surely reach deep concentration and attain wisdom. In times past, people dedicated to practice normally spent 5 years for this stage of learning and cultivation. During these 5 years, they would specialize in a certain method. Afterwards, they were allowed to study various sutras. At that point, I believe their understanding would be greatly improved, and they will naturally understand the meanings in sutras. If we still have wandering and discriminatory thoughts, and have not yet awakened our wisdom, then even if we were to study for 300 years, we would still not understand the meanings of the sutras and their commentaries. Mr. Lee had placed 3 restrictions on me, which I thought were his alone. In 1989, when I was lecturing in Singapore, Master Yanpei invited me to give a lecture to a group of practitioners. Seeing that there were many young people, I told them of my past experiences and advised them to solely follow Master Yanpei. I recommended that they follow one teacher and one method. You will surely succeed. After the lecture, Master Yanpei invited me to have tea with him. He told me that when he was a young monk, his teacher had placed the same 3 restrictions on him. Then I realized that the 3 restrictions were not the invention of one individual, rather they were the prerequisites that past masters set for their students. Only then did I understand what inheritance of the tradition from the master meant. When the teacher thinks that we are good students, he will require us to follow the 3 restrictions. He will first cover our eyes and block our ears so that no worries will intrude. When we truly have abandoned all attachments and gained wisdom, we will be allowed to study other methods. Therefore, extensive learning is conducted in the second stage, rather than at the beginning. Difficulties can arise if we engage in extensive learning at the very beginning. It is similar to hearing instructions from one master and beginning to follow him. Then we hear instructions from a second master and feel as if we were facing 2 paths leading in different directions. With 3 masters, we will be caught at a 3-way junction, and with 4, we are stuck at a crossroads, not knowing which way to go. Therefore, it is important to follow only one master at one time. Reading of ancient sages, monks, nuns and laypeople, we see that some followed their teacher for 20 to 30 years until they achieved some awakening. Only then did they begin to study extensively with other teachers. Buddhist education is different from modern education in terms of concepts and methods. For instance, in a university, we must be very careful and take our time choosing our major. Buddhism, however, is different. Here we are expected to awaken to perfect complete wisdom first, and then in the future we will become knowledgeable in all other departments of the university. Where do we start? From the intensive study of a certain method, just as is said, an awakening in one sutra means awakening in all sutras. What does awakening mean? Awakened means to have attained wisdom. Modern education is similar to building a pyramid. We read extensively and then narrow the scope of learning to specialize in one subject. This is a way of progressing from extensive to intensive learning. But, no matter how tall the pyramid or how large its base, the pyramid has its zenith. Buddhism is different. It is like a tree with roots, trunk, branches, leaves and finally fruits. It is an infinite process, starting from one point, the root, and then developing into the great perfection of the self-nature. The result is that we understand everything. Worldly knowledge has its limitations, after which there is no more to learn. Buddhism, however, is boundless. The wisdom of Buddhism is beyond the comprehension of average people. Buddhism may seem ordinary at the beginning, but the achievements we make later are inconceivable. On the contrary, worldly studies initially appear extensive and comprehensive, but in the end, they provide no lasting accomplishment. By following the 4 great vows, we will eventually uncover our original self-nature. In the Flower Adornment Sutra, Siddhana served as a role model for our cultivation. He not only taught us the principles and methods, but also how to apply them in our daily lives. Great Wisdom Bodhisattva, Siddhana's first teacher, instructed him to follow the aforementioned 3 restrictions and to sever all afflictions, to accomplish self-discipline, deep concentration and wisdom. After Siddhana had attained original wisdom, Great Wisdom Bodhisattva then allowed him to travel extensively and to learn other methods by visiting 53 spiritual guides who represented different occupations and levels in society. His last visit was with Universal Worthy Bodhisattva, who taught him the 10 great vows, as well as how to chant Amichuofo, and to be born into the Western Pure Land, where upon meeting Buddha Amitabha, he attained perfect complete enlightenment. Without being born into the Pure Land and meeting Buddha Amitabha, we will only fulfill the 2nd and 3rd vows of severing all afflictions and mastering all methods, but will find it difficult to attain Buddhahood. In the Flower Adornment Sutra, both Great Wisdom and Universal Worthy Bodhisattvas had reached the level of equal enlightenment and vowed to be born into the Pure Land. I was surprisingly pleased to discover this when I gave talks on the Flower Adornment Sutra. I wondered why enlightened bodhisattvas in the flower adornment world would want to be born into the Western Pure Land, considering how wonderful their own world was. It seemed unnecessary for them to do so. After thinking about it, I realized that they had vowed to go there to be able to attain Buddhahood in a short time. If not for this, there would be no reason to go to the Pure Land of Buddha Amitabha. Suddenly, I realized that if we want to attain the perfect complete enlightenment, we need to go to the Western Pure Land. Only by understanding the chapter of Universal Worthy Bodhisattva's conduct and vows will we know the proper way to study and practice Mahayana Buddhism. And when we truly understand, have awakened and have generated the Bodhi mind, we will finally be free from delusions and attachments. The 9th principle of the 3 conditions is to deeply believe in the law of cause and effect. Earlier in my practice, I was puzzled by this phrase in the Visualization Sutra. Why? It seemed to imply that a bodhisattva had no understanding of the law of cause and effect. If we know that good causes will result in good effects and that bad causes will result in bad effects, how could it be that a bodhisattva was not aware of this? Yet, the sutra urges bodhisattvas to believe in cause and effect. I could not understand it. Then I read the Flower Adornment Sutra, and upon carefully reading the chapter about the 10 grounds, I suddenly understood. It said that, from the beginning to the end, the 10 ground bodhisattvas have always practiced mindfulness of the Buddha. I then realized that the bodhisattvas, from the first to the 10th ground and the level of equal enlightenment, all practiced the Buddha name chanting method. And I also came to understand that chanting the Buddha's name is the cause, and attaining Buddhahood is the effect. Many bodhisattvas were not aware of this, which is why Buddha Shakyamuni explained it in this sutra. It was their firm belief in the above statement that led Great Wisdom Bodhisattva, Universal Worthy Bodhisattva and Siddhana, to vow to be born into the Pure Land. It was after I had studied and lectured on the Flower Adornment Sutra that I came to understand this statement. Thus, it really is difficult to acquire this understanding. The 10th principle of the 3 conditions is reciting and upholding Mahayana Sutras, which help us to understand the true reality of life in the universe. With this understanding, we will know the proper way to think and behave as well as the appropriate method to use. Only when we truly accord with the teachings of this sutra will we benefit. As practitioners, the least we need to do is to participate in the daily morning and evening sessions. The purpose of the morning session is to start a new day by reminding ourselves to base our thought and behavior on the Buddha's teachings. The purpose of the evening session is to reflect on whether we have followed the instructions. If not, then we need to earnestly regret and vow to correct our mistakes. For the sessions, Pure Land practitioners used to recite the Amitabha Sutra, chant the rebirth mantra 3 times, and then follow by chanting Amichuofo. The more times they recited Amichuofo, the better the results. This practice of single-mindedness was the same for morning and evening. The Amitabha Sutra appears simple but is actually extremely profound. To recite and benefit from it, we need a pure and quiet heart. The second time I lectured on the commentary of the Amitabha Sutra, it took over 300 sessions, which is an indication of its level of complexity. I now recommend the Infinite Life Sutra, which is easier to understand both in language and meaning. Since many people lead such busy lives, I suggest reciting Chapter 6 for the morning session, which is comprised of the 48 vows of Buddha Amitabha. It is the core of Pure Land Buddhism, because true cultivators need to have the same compassion and vows as those of Buddha Amitabha. For the evening session, I recommend reading chapters 32 to 37, in which the Buddha teaches us how to end all wrongdoings, practice good conduct, and how to interact with others, and handle matters and objects in our daily living. If we can follow at least these chapters, then we abide by the precepts. If we can follow the above practices, be mindful of Buddha Amitabha and abide by the teachings in these 6 chapters, we would have the same mind, vows, understanding and practice of Buddha Amitabha, and then we are Buddha Amitabha. But if we chant or read indifferently without applying the principles, then all the efforts we put forth will be pointless. The combination of morning and evening sessions was designed in ancient times and proved to be useful, for the people of that time had better understanding of what they were reciting. These sessions reminded people to behave in a proper manner, and thus helped them to detect their faults. Today, however, people simply recite absent-mindedly, like small children who sing a song with the right words to the right tune, but without understanding the meaning. Only when we become aware of the purpose and method of chanting the sutra can we actually achieve any results. My late teacher, Mr. Lee, always told his students that when they listened to lectures, they needed to concentrate on understanding the principles in the sutra and not the words themselves. These principles are the laws governing the Buddha's teachings as well as worldly teachings. One who thoroughly understands the principles of one sutra can then use them to master all sutras. In other words, the student must conscientiously follow the methods taught by the teacher and do so wholeheartedly without being distracted by anything new and different. To develop the paramita of patience, we need to persevere in our cultivation. People may recommend other methods or sutras as a better choice. Do not listen to them, do not pay attention to them until we have attained wisdom. Delve deeply into just one method. This is the key to success in our study and cultivation. The 11th principle of the three conditions is encouraging others to advance on the path to enlightenment. To do this, we extensively introduce Buddhism to those who are willing to learn. While the first 10 principles of the three conditions are for self-benefit and cultivation, the 11th is to encourage and help others is the act of an enlightened being. By fulfilling all the principles in the three conditions, from practicing filial piety for parents to encouraging others on the path to enlightenment, we will become the good man and woman of the Mahayana Sutras. The Earth Treasure Sutra tells us that if we chant the name, make offerings to Earth Treasure Bodhisattva in accord with the teachings, then we can be born into the 33rd heaven 100 times, without falling into the three bad realms. In our world, we are considered a good man or woman after fulfilling the first condition. The criteria in the Theravada teachings require us to meet the first and second conditions. However, in the Mahayana teachings, we are required to meet all three conditions. Therefore, when reading sutras, we need to ask ourselves whether or not we are qualified to be good men or women. How much have I achieved? And does my conduct conform to the standards set forth in the Mahayana teachings? This is the end of this episode. We will pick up the rest of Chapter 6 the next episode. A friendly reminder, your engagement through likes, shares, and subscriptions plays a pivotal role in disseminating these profound teachings, extending their reach to touch the lives of innumerable individuals in pursuit of enlightenment and inner tranquility. We sincerely thank you for embarking on this enlightening journey with us, united in our mission to make the profound teachings of the Buddha readily available to all who seek them. Buddhism's timeless wisdom carries the potential to illuminate minds and bring solace to countless souls. Your participation is not just an act of support for our channel, but a contribution to a broader cause: the dissemination of enlightenment, compassion, and peace. Together, we can bridge the gap between seekers and the invaluable teachings of the Buddha, breaking down barriers and making these teachings accessible to people from all walks of life. Every like, every share, and every subscription strengthens this bridge, fostering a world where the wisdom of the Buddha can bring solace, understanding, and harmony to an ever-widening audience. Your continued support is deeply appreciated, and we invite you to stay connected with us on this meaningful journey. Let's unite in our efforts to ensure that the radiant teachings of the Buddha touch the hearts and minds of all who yearn for them.